If you don't want your floors to cup, you had better acclimate your flooring. Well, what if I told you that acclimation is actually completely unnecessary? After all, the process of acclimation is to get the hardwoods to be the same moisture content as what your subfloor is. But what if they are already the same when they come off the truck? Then you could just put them in. But how would you know the answer to that question? You need a moisture meter. You can get a cheap one for around $30. You need one of these to ensure that your investment is safe. A $30 meter is well worth it to prevent thousands, if not tens of thousands, of losses from a moisture problem that could have been mitigated. We can drop some links to them down below. Now, these cheaper ones are not highly accurate, but they are going to be good enough to let you know if there's a major problem. We use the Lignomat SD, which is a pinless meter, and you just set it down on the wood and it will give you a reading at certain depths. It is very expensive though. To measure the moisture in your floor, you're going to need to read the wood and your subfloor. And you're going to need to read once for about every 100 square feet. 50 square feet would be better, but 100 will do it. That's going to be about twice for every average size room and about 1 out of every 5 bundles of wood. Then you're going to add your readings together and divide them by the total to get your averages. So let's say we have got a 450 square foot install. We're going to measure every 100 square feet and we're going to get our readings. So for the subfloor, we've got our 5 readings. They add up to 40.5. We'll divide them by 5. We'll get an average of 8.1. For our wood, we have our 5 readings. They add up to 38.8. Divided by 5, we get an average of 7.7. So they're only an average of 0.5% apart. And beyond that, they are also between our 6 to 9% range. So this would be optimal. For flooring widths of 2 1/4 wide or narrower, it should be measuring within 4% of each other. For 3 inch and 3 1/4, we like to see 3% or less difference. And for 4 inch or wider, we want to see 2% or less. The wider the floor is, the more exaggerated the shrinking and expansion will be throughout the seasons. But where we are at in Southwest Michigan, we experience a fairly severe drying and shrinkage in the winter and a swelling and, if installed improperly, even a cupping in the summer. Now, a little bit of cupping is okay, but if you were to use the wrong materials and have the wrong mix of stuff, you could wind up with catastrophic failure over failure to acclimate and measure moisture on the front end. In Southwest Michigan, we want to have readings in the house of between 7 to 9% in the summer, and in the winter, we'll take anywhere from 5 to 7%. These moisture contents will vary depending on where you're at. For example, Florida is probably higher, whereas Arizona is probably lower. When you're taking these readings, if you're consistently measuring a certain part of the house or a certain bundle of wood and it's way off from the rest, usually higher, you need to investigate this. It could be you have some type of leak or moisture problem in the house, or it could be that in transport your hardwoods got wet. Maybe the bundles on top are reading significantly higher. You're going to want to investigate this and figure it out. Don't ignore it. Now, we've told you that if the readings are the same, you're probably safe to put it in. That being said, it's safer to acclimate. So here at Lumberjack Flooring, we're always going to try to acclimate 1 to 2 weeks. Now, if there were some type of instance where it was going to throw the customer schedule way off, we would just trust our readings and we would go ahead and install the floor. But 1 to 2 weeks is better. Now, during that time frame, the house must be at its stable and final resting place as far as temperature and moisture goes. You want to see relative humidity between 30 and 55%. You're going to have the temperature set to about what you would keep it at year round. Now, you don't generally have to think about this too much if you've been living in the house and you've got it adjusted how you like it. If this is a new construction where rain has come into the structure in the past 12 months, or even just a remodel that's had a roof on it, but a bunch of moist air has been allowed to permeate the house, that subfloor is going to have all sorts of moisture in it. Wood is like a sponge. It absorbs whatever's around it. So that moisture is going to be deep inside your subfloor, and it may take a while to get it out. We will not deliver wood to a new construction job site or a remodel job site without ensuring that the house has had the heating/air conditioning on for at least 3 weeks and making sure that subfloor content is about where it needs to be. It can take a long time for a subfloor to dry out if it's been 3 months getting rained on, even if that was 6 months ago. I've talked to you about temperature and moisture control. I understand that for a lot of people, they don't have moisture control. There are things you can do, like buying a humidifier and dehumidifier. I understand that's a hassle. Probably a lot of you won't do that, but you just need to expect that if you do not control the humidity in your house, your wood is going to shrink in the winter and expand in the summer. Now, that is okay for your more narrow widths of flooring. So if you've got 2¼ inch wide or 3¼ inch wide, you're probably going to be okay. Now, if you're getting up 4-inch and beyond, especially if it's solid and not engineered, it's going to be nasty. You're going to be getting gaps that are so big you could put a couple quarters in them, and then the swelling can be very serious in the summer. In the acclimation process, if you cut corners or use the wrong materials, you can wind up in a world of hurt. So I want to caution you here. A couple dangerous situations that you are going to want to have a pro come in and look at for sure. One, are you installing over a crawl space? I know crawl spaces are not everywhere in the US, but if you are prone to moisture problems. Crawl spaces are oftentimes not dry. So make sure that crawl space is dry before you're adding hardwoods to your home over top of it. 2, concrete slabs. If a slab is poured properly with a moisture barrier laid underneath and then sealed up properly with a liquid moisture barrier made for hardwood floors, you can usually install over it with no problems. But if this is an old porch deck, for example, there's not going to be a moisture barrier underneath. The general contractor was not planning on this being part of the house, so that concrete is sitting on the raw earth. And concrete is a wicking material. Just as when a candle wick goes down into the wax comes up the wick a little bit. That's what moisture does with concrete. If you've got moisture underneath the slab, it's going to work its way up through the slab into your hardwoods. Now, you can probably mitigate it with a liquid moisture barrier, but I would be very hesitant to take on a project like that myself. When it comes time to bring the wood into your house, we know what we're doing now and we've got our moisture meter ready. We're going to get our readings as soon as possible, hopefully before the wood is totally brought in. And if it's real close, we can probably just stack it in a normal pile to where it will take up the least amount of space possible. Now, if it needs to come up or down in moisture considerably to match your house, you're going to want to stack this thing in kind of a Lincoln log pattern with a bunch of room for the air to flow through. You might consider putting a fan on it or using a dehumidifier nearby to get it to where it needs to be. Just make sure you don't overdo it. And keep in mind when you're bringing the hardwood in the house, it weighs about 3 pounds a square foot. So do not put too much in one place unless you're trying to knock your house down. I want to thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, you might also like the one right up here.